What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of The Travel Guy. I'm at 84, and I am the Travel Guy. On this episode, we're going to talk about a adventure I went on many moons ago. In fact, it was my first real solo adventure. So this is going to be split up into a few parts because it's a very long, interesting story, and I hate to condense it all into a half hour, but maybe it'll fit in a half hour. We'll see how far we get. But basically, I wanted to tell you about a little time that really kicked off my baseball exploring, if you will. Kinda. So to give you a little idea, I've been to every Major League Baseball park, 35 to be exact, since they've added five over the years. And over the time, I would set these little trips. Would I do like weekend trips, a long weekend, maybe get like two or three parks in, or base them around like other trips if I could fit them in. Like we were down in Miami, so we seen a Marlins game. Happened to be I was down in Fort Myers. We drove up to Tampa to see a Tampa game, stuff like that. Two elaborate trips where me and my cousins left Boston on a Friday afternoon and didn't return to the following Sunday, where we went to like Pittsburgh, Philly, all the way out to St. Louis, up to Chicago, into Toronto and back, hitting like numerous amounts of stadiums during that trip. That was pretty epic fanfare. I did one where I went to Cali, did the same exact thing. I flew out and did kind of like two LA teams, San Diego and Arizona. I've done one when I went down to Fort Myers for spring break and hit like seven spring training parks. So I was on a kick at this point. So 2007, I probably had about a third of the parks done, maybe more. I think at that point, yeah, I was probably close, a little more than a third. Um, and I was trying to get them all done before I was 30 years old. So I had just gotten into the whole hotel point, airline point kind of like game, whatever like that. So I had gotten a JetBlue card. JetBlue offered me one, gave me one. It was the American Express. And, if you spend X amount of money, you got so many points and yada, yada, yada. So I had gotten this card and I used it, but I didn't really understand the whole point system. Really, I had like a Discover card that would give you like a $20 off like the movies every once in a while when you spent. You could redeem them for like gift certificates and stuff like that. But nothing actually gave you something that was worth the while. So I had gotten my JetBlue card, and I was basically like, what am I gonna do? With all these points I got because they give you like these bonus points and everything. And I know I wanted to do a trip. The Red Sox were playing in Houston um, in the 2008 season. And this is before the new schedule, obviously, where you play the same teams, all the teams every year. You just alternate the national home away. Um, this was a interleague before the Astros were even in the American League. They were still in the National League, and it was a rarity that the Red Sox would actually make it down there. In fact, they had only played down there once, I believe, and I don't even know if it was even in the actual Minute Maid, not Minute Maid, yeah, Minute Maid Field. I think it's called Minute Maid. I gotta figure out that what the name of that park is right now because they might have changed the name to Houston Astros Ballpark. Let's see what it's called. It's no, might still be Oh, it's called Dakin Park now. Okay, there you go. So they changed the name of the park. Retractable roof, formerly known as Minute Maid Park. So, yes. So the Red Sox were playing down there in the summertime. It was 4th of July actually that weekend, and I had some time. I was off on break for school. I was graduating college that year, so we were graduating in August, and that was our break. It was our 4th of July break. So I was like, this is interesting. Let's maybe I'll go to Houston, go see the Red Sox play, get that stadium knocked out. And then I'm looking at the map and I go, and the Rangers are home that weekend too. I could actually get two pucks in and take care of Texas, be ready to go, right? So I went online and I kind of just played around the points. Ideally, it would be like fly Boston to um, Houston direct round trip, but nah, why would I do it easy like that? So I had played around with a bunch of different options. So one of the options that came up that was relatively cheap was I could fly. I do a one-way ticket from Boston to Austin, Texas. Okay, using points. Okay. and had points left over. And I was like, all right, so once I get to Austin, I need to rent a car anyway, so I could rent a car and I could drive um, up to Houston for that game, the first game. It was like a Friday night game. And then from there, I would take that same rental car and drive up to Dallas, to the Arlington, Texas, to go see a Rangers game. And then that would have been on Sunday, and then what day would that have been? I feel like I went no, I feel like I went down on a Friday, but I think it was a Saturday. I think it was a Saturday, Sunday. The 3rd of July was Monday. 4th of July was Tuesday. So, which I'm trying to remember now. Hold on. Now we got to go back a little bit because I feel like maybe it was Saturday. Maybe I drove through Sunday and maybe I went to a 1 o'clock game on Monday, which was the 3rd of July. So, all right. Now I'm kind of processing this in my head right now. Let's look at the calendar because I can tell you exactly what the dates were if we go back into a time machine. All right. So we're going all the way back to 2008. Oh, here we go. 2008. Da, 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 da. So July 2008. Okay, so the 4th of July was on a Friday. So that was the week I had off from school. So I feel like it was like a Monday. So it was like a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or maybe it was whatever the day was. I was back by the 4th of July. So maybe I was coming home like a day or two before the 4th. Nevertheless, though, I was going to go to a Red Sox game and then a Rangers game, and then I was gonna travel through the night and get to a Colorado's Rocky game. Now, Colorado, in general, the Rockies is probably the most out of place team in the entire league. There's no next to Seattle, Colorado, and the Bay Area. Those three areas are probably some of the most out of reach baseball in the entire league. So to get to those stadiums, kind of takes some skill. Like when I did Seattle, I did the Bay Area. So I got that done, and that was actually a giant road trip that took me all around 10 days on the western part of the country. But um, I figure if I could get Denver or the Rockies in, that would be the easiest one to take care of because then all my other trips I can kind of bunch up. I know basically when I started this that the Pacific Northwest and the Bay Area are probably going to be the last for me to get of active stadiums at the time. And I needed to get it done before I was 30. And I ended up finishing it like about a month after my 29th birthday. So I successfully succeeded to do that. On my other goal of is also all 50 states before I'm 50. I just turned 40 a couple months ago, and I have every state except for Hawaii. So we just got to get out there one of these days. Just get to Hawaii, call it a day. But so and then, so back onto the whole baseball thing. So if I figured if I got Colorado Rockies out of the way, I could easily do my other trips, right? So, how do I get to Colorado? Do I fly up there? That was a little expensive. Um, renting the car at the time seemed a little pricey to me. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm doing this all on the budget. This is my last year of college. I'm working part time. You know what I mean? I'm working like 4 days a week at a sneaker store and a night a week at a restaurant. And I don't have very disposable income. I'm trying to do something as low as possible. So I figured Greyhound. I could get a Greyhound bus ticket from Austin to Denver that went overnight, so I didn't need a hotel. And it went up through Texas into I think New Mexico, and then up that way, all the way up to Denver. And it would go over the night. It would get me into Denver, I think, like around 10 in the morning. And this bus was leaving around like 3 in the afternoon, give or take, right? Maybe even earlier than that. But I had to go from, at this point, I was in Dallas. I had to drive the rental car and drop it all the way back in Austin, because that's where I rented it from. And then the bus stopped in Dallas. So it was kind of like counterproductive. Like I kind of was already in Dallas. I had to drive over down. In retrospect, this is a big mistake. Never did this before. I would have probably returned the rental car just in Denver, right? And call it a day. Well, I'm really grateful I did that trip down to Austin to drop the rental car off because it made me think about a few things. And it changed the whole entire perspective of this trip altogether, completely. Um, and do I get into that now or do I change it? Let me just talk about Houston for now. So keep in mind the returning of the first rental car to jump on the Greyhound bus from Austin to Dallas is the pivotal moment of this story. So we'll probably actually get into that the next episode, I guess, because that would be a good way to take off and go from there because that was pretty chaotic at that point. So here I am, Austin, land, airplane. I drive up to Houston. It was like a 2.5, 3 hour drive. Now, I don't, this is where my hotel planning wasn't very good back in the day. I would book hotels, and a lot of times they were further away from the spot we were at, um, but it was a lot cheaper. And this was before Uber, and this is like you had to depend on cabs and stuff. So basically, what I would do is I'd say, "Oh, I have to take a cab from point A to point B," but I had no idea how much these cabs were. At least Uber, you can kind of do the thing, you can kind of figure it out. No idea. Could have been $10, could have been $100. And this Houston hotel, I do think I kind of effed up a little bit on when I booked it, and I didn't check. Nowadays, what I'll do is I'll Google the hotel's address and compare it to where I need to be to go to, and weigh my options of getting to point B from the hotel, and if it's cheaper that way, or is it just cheaper to get a hotel that's closer to where I need to be, something like that. I did not do this with this Houston hotel. I think it was a Holiday Inn Select or just a regular Holiday Inn, something of that nature. It wasn't Express. It was either a Select or it was like a full blown Holiday Inn. And it was on the Beltway of Houston. I didn't realize how big Houston was at this point, and I didn't really understand where I was staying in the hotel compared to downtown where the stadium is, and I kind of screwed the pooch on that one. So I don't know about it. First of all, this is me with my luggage checked at the airplane coming down, leaking liquid after I got it. Before I got the rental car. I'd put glass bottles of beer in my suitcase like an idiot, and so I'd have to buy beers on the way to my hotel room. And a couple of them exploded and then got buried away. I ended up washing my clothes in the hotel room sink and having them air dry and stuff like that. So that was the first. I was pulling the bag through the airport, the Austin airport, with like liquid leaking out of it like an idiot. So yeah, getting my rental car, I drive to Houston. So I'm approaching the hotel. So I stopped at a convenience store real quick, I remember, and I got myself a six-pack beer, and I headed to the hotel. And I remember the hotel was kind of a really off-beaten path. Couldn't really see the city. It was on a big beltway. I want to say like six something. You guys living down there in Houston could probably tell me the 610 maybe if that sounds familiar or something like that. But um, it totally was like way out of the way. So I was like, all right, no big deal. I get to the hotel. I get like 2 hours before the game. Now, also back in 2008, I would carry around a digital camera with me, and like a bulky digital camera, because I would take the pictures of the stadiums I was always at, and I always had a couple iconic pictures I would take. So I would carry around a camera. I had a brick of a cell phone as well. So it was like a thick, like, you know, um, in 2008 it was like a BlackBerry, I believe at that time. I hadn't got the iPhone yet, so it was still the BlackBerry. And then, I would have like you would obviously get my wallet too. So it wasn't so I had these three bulky items with me that I would take with me. So it wasn't very comfortable to go out after games, and I'd always get a shot glass after the game too. So I was like, now I'm carrying items with me as long as the stuff I brought with me, right? Which really isn't much different now. I still get shot glasses as I go to games, and now I carry a battery pack. It's about the size of my wallet used to be, where everything's in my phone. But I don't know. Who cares? It's all in perspective, right? So I get to my room. I call down to the front desk. Go, hey, I need a hotel. I mean, a hotel. I'm at the hotel. I need a taxi to the Minute Maid Field, Minute Maid Park. Sure, no problem. So I get in the cab. And like back then in 2008, not everyone took card, right? I think Dunkin' Donuts just started taking card in 2008, 2007, 2008. So I don't even know if I'm gonna have to stop at an ATM. So now I gotta carry cash on me. I have my debit card on me. You have to make sure I have the cash on me as well, right? Instead of using the credit card and all that stuff. So I remember taking the cab and I get dumped out downtown. And I remember it was a hot night, a little humid, and I was walking into the stadium. And they were playing the Red Sox that night. So I get in there, I found my seat, I get my shot glass. Um, and it was weird because this is the first time I'm going to a game by myself. And every time I've done this baseball road trip. It's been with someone, right? Been with at least one person, sometimes a group. And this was the first time I was going to a game by myself. So it kind of kicked off a pattern for the rest of my life at this point. When I was, so 2008, I was 25, I was 21 and 5 to 6 3 7, yeah, 2024, right? So I've never gone to a game before. I was always with someone. So going to this game was actually pretty much a test if I was going to be able to do this. And now, since then, I've been to a lot of games for myself. A lot, probably almost as many games as I've been to with someone. And I enjoy it. It's very therapeutic to me. I like sitting there. Sometimes it's nice being with someone you can chat with. Sometimes it's just nice being there, just taking in the vibes. And that's what I did in Houston. I was sitting there and I was taking in the vibes, and I was enjoying it thoroughly. It was great. It felt great. It was awesome. Walked around, took some pictures, started exploring the ballpark more. Something I did, and I regretted I didn't do with some of the stadiums I've seen prior to this. Now that when I go back to these stadiums, I kind of take the time to explore them. But I didn't. I should have done it more, and I didn't do it more, and I'm a little upset about it. And I didn't start it until probably around 2017 is when I was doing the minor league parks, really exploring them. And now for these major league parks, I'm really going back to them and kind of making it a thing. So, um, I remember just walking around. I should have explored more. I think I did a lap and a loop, but so back in this time, I was 24 and I was by myself too. So I was looking at what am I gonna do tonight? I'm a single guy. I'm out. I'm gonna do a Houston, but at the same time, I didn't have the confidence just to walk into a busy nightclub or a bar by myself either. I was still young at this point, right? Now, mind you, if I was in college, I would, walk down to like the little pub down the street, have a beer and stuff, and it was whatever, right? It was kind of cool. I didn't mind it. I knew the people there. I was with someone from the college. But I never went to a bar by myself, never alone like a nightclub type place or anything like that. So I remember when the game was over, I was walking down and there's this main little route that kind of runs across from the stadiums. And I think the soccer stadium's like right there too. And or something, little convention center, something's like right next to Minute Maid Park. And there's a light rail that runs right across down from the stadium as well. And there was a bunch of bars and stuff on it. And I remember going around, and I think it's either Friday or Saturday night because it's really hopping. I think it was Friday night. I'm pretty sure and certain it was Friday night. And these bars are popping and popping. And I don't have the confidence to go in there. I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, I was probably looking my best those years too. In all my years, my like mid late 20s were probably the best I looked. I had tan on, obviously, and my hair was cut good. I was dressed really nice, like except for that night I had jersey on, but still I had some confidence, right? And I had zero confidence to go into these bars to go talk to just to sit there and have a beer, you know what I mean? I was kind of like I think being at the game by myself and already traveling so much at this point by myself kind of put me into like kind of a zone where I felt like alone. Like now I could go travel by myself and then, once I land, I go to a bar and I could either be sitting there by myself or I could still socialize, you know what I mean? Or I could still not feel all alone. Um, but back then I kind of felt that way. I think I was so zoned in. I never flew by myself before. I'm flying by myself before. I never rented a car by myself. I'm renting a car by myself. I never, went to a baseball game by myself. Here I am at a baseball game all by myself. And I'm sitting there just like, okay, I can't go to spot. And I remember I attempted to go into a few of them, and the goal was just to get a drink. And then I was getting really, really like nervous about being able to get a cab back to town. And I just didn't know. I needed to go somewhere familiar. And I remember like walking out of that area and kind of walking down like a street towards like buildings and stuff from the park. And I was in search for something familiar. And this is something that happened to me a lot in my early days of traveling. I always needed to find a familiar place, something I was comfortable with. Like a Hard Rock Cafe to me was really comfortable because when I was younger, of age, of course, I was drinking at Hard Rocks, like when I went to New York and trips like that, because it was something I was familiar with, something I was familiar with as a kid, and like a Planet Hollywood. And I remember just walking down the street in Houston and looking for like a Hard Rock to go into, even though I was gonna get totally ripped off on the price of everything. At least it was some place that was kind of like I kind of felt and I kind of knew about. And I think I actually came across one, and it's like a main intersection running through the middle of the town, so it's hard to get to the other side. You have to find, and I remember at one point I was walking down the ramp. I was almost on the interstate. I was all by myself, and it was a downtown city like this on a weekend is a dead town. There's nothing going on there, you know. Everyone was near the ballpark. I was walking downtown where everyone has left for the weekend, right? Like be a ghost town. And I think I got to the Hard Rock Cafe, and I think it was just closing. I think because by the time the game was over, it would have been around like 9 o'clock Central Time. By the time I got out and everything, it would have been 10. So the place was probably closing. And I remember just being there, like, what the hell do I do? And I was kind of wondering. A part of my mind thought I could actually walk from downtown to my hotel with no problem at all. And me and my idiot cousins did something similar to this the year before, where we walked from this nightclub in Philly to our hotel in Philly, because we could see the building, and it was probably a good 3 to 4 miles to one of the worst sections of town. So in my stupid mind, in my head, I'm thinking I could probably walk from this downtown area back to my hotel, even though I have zero direction of what's going on. I guess I'll use the app on my phone, which was very, very primitive at the time. It was a BlackBerry. I don't even think that was even available. All I had was the cab company's number. And I remember just calling the cab, and I don't even remember being picked up by the cab. I do remember the cab driver going to the game, had a red Solo cup, which I'm presumably was alcohol in there, and we were driving through some rough neighborhoods. So in my mind, I'm not even recalling these like rundown neighborhoods through Houston that they were cutting through to get me to the stadium from the hotel. But I think I'm like I walk through this stuff like an idiot. Like I have no idea. In reality, it was probably like 10 miles away. There's no way in hell I would have been able to do it. Now I'm hemorrhaging money for cabs both ways, where I could have just probably took that money and stayed somewhere close to the stadium or somewhere close where there was nightlife, and I wasn't just wandering the street of a semi-abandoned city on a Friday in the summertime. That was about 100 degrees out at that time. So here I am, just wandering around. So I remember getting back to the hotel and then being absolutely bored because it had to be like around like 11 o'clock. And I'm like by myself with no rules and no one to check in with. I could literally do anything I want right now and no one even knows. And hopefully I just don't get arrested. Anything I want legally. How's that sound? That's all I could be thinking about. So, and I remember just like looking around my hotel and like I'm trying to like I'm on the balcony trying to look out and see if there's like restaurants or something I could go to, something common that I know that I could go sit at like a bar like at Chili's or Fridays or something like that, right? Like my hotel didn't have a bar downstairs, and at that point I was kind of wary about hotel bars. I think I've only went to a hotel bar once prior to that, other than the place that I worked, so I wasn't really gung ho about that. And there was nothing I could find. There was a strip club, but it seemed like it was a little bit of a walk away. And then what I'm going to do there, just hemorrhage more money. Like nothing made sense. And I remember just sitting there, and I ended up drinking the beers that didn't break that were in my bag. Then I did stop at the convenience. That's right, to the hotel. I remember just drinking some beers and just kind of like chilling. I ended up going to sleep. And then the next day was the day I was going to head up to Dallas for the game. But there was a catch, and I didn't mention this catch into it. I wanted to get I wanted to see two things. I wanted to get Arkansas as a state on my list, and I wanted to go to Texarkana, which is a town that's half in Texas, half in Alabama. That was my goal. I wanted to do that. So I was gonna get up really, really early. I think the game was at 5 o'clock, and I was gonna get up really, really early to drive to Texarkana, which was about an hour and a half each way, um, detour, 3 hours total. And I was also doing something I have never done before, driving a giant long distance alone with no one in my car. Every time I've done a real big road trip, I was basically with someone. And I've never done this alone by myself. This would require me to drive. It was about 3.5 hours to Texarkana and then another 3.5 hours to Arlington. And I wasn't going to be able to make it to my hotel in time to take a cab to the game because I was really running late. I was going to run late anyways, but then I ended up really, really running late. So I would have to drive to the game and pay to park and just have a beer and just be careful. So I knew that was going to happen probably. So I didn't have to worry about wasting my money on there, but I almost missed the game. And it's because of just stupidity and not planning right. So basically, back in 2008, we didn't have a device where we could just type in the address and be like, all right, I'm at this hotel. How long it's going to take me to get to there and there? And then it'll give me a time. We had like Google Maps, which was kind of helpful, but we really didn't take in consideration too much stuff. And my BlackBerry didn't have anything, and I had a GPS, like portable GPS thing that I would take with me, which I don't know how accurate that was either. But we had that on the dash. So I think I just got a late start because I was a little hungover because I just drinking beers in my room all night. First night alone by myself. It was probably literally the first night alone by myself, not at home, like somewhere foreign that night. And I didn't do anything with it, which is a little embarrassing. But yeah, my first night alone as a human being out of my comfort zone, I didn't do anything. Didn't think about that until I just said that right now. But yes, that's pretty big. Well, so I just drank the beers in my room and then decided to check out and continue on my way. And that I did. So I got into the car and I drove, and I didn't know exactly what time I was going to be there, and I didn't know exactly how long it was going to take me once I was there, what I was going to do. I was going to spend about probably a half hour to an hour there, and then have to hightail it back to um, Dallas area, and didn't really know how long that was going to take me either. So all I remember is that the baseball game was at like 5 o'clock, say, give or take, right? And I remember I was probably an hour and a half away from the stadium, and I was listening to the ball game on the radio. So I had gone all the way up to Texarkana. It took longer than I thought. I was there, took some pictures, walked to town a little bit. I wanted to have lunch there. Didn't have enough time for that, and I kind of just was like, "All right, this is it. I seen the city, took pictures. I'm here. Cool. That would probably be here again, but it was awesome to check it out, right?" And so I'm getting on the road again, and then I don't know if I screwed up on the time because when I booked it, I was booking Eastern time. It was really Central time where this game was. I don't know if I just wrote down the names of the stadium of the time of the game wrong. I don't know. I'm trying to look right now. I have a travel booklet. Let's see if I can find it. All right, so sorry about that. I have this travel book because this is what we had to do back in the day. We had to like print stuff out for all your trips, right? So I would, because we didn't have apps. So this is my first thing I did. This was one of my trips to Florida, which would have been later on that year. So I guess I don't have any of the information for that trip in there because considering that was going to be after that trip. So that is not working. Let me see. There's another one on there. Okay, yeah, so that didn't have anything in there. So I must have started that when I did the Italy trip, which would have been later on that year. So yeah, so I left and I miscalculated everything, and then I ended up getting to the game, I think in the fifth inning. So I have a rule. I got to stay there for at least half the game. So I got there for at least half the game. No, fourth inning I got there. Fourth inning I got there. So yeah, I got to the game, watched the entire game. I was like the last one to leave the stadium. I was checking it out. It was really cool. I was starting to dip into the exploring again, kind of like the starting to explore thing. And I have this vivid image. I remember being down. God, now it's like flashing back to me now. I remember pulling up, I remember walking into the stadium. It's all red brick, and we're walking in, and I remember just walking through the concourse, and trying to get a bear. It was late innings, and I remember just kind of going over, and I can still see it in my mind. It was like vendors on the left. There was like the built-in ones on the right. The stairs or an escalator right there. And I remember grabbing a bear over there, and I remember just kind of like finding a place. I was walking around because the sun was intense. This is why they actually built a dome for the Rangers because the sun was so bad during these games in the summertime. It was so hot. I was like just trying to find food. I was just kind of moving around the stadium. Such a beautiful stadium that you couldn't use half of it because no one wanted to go to the games. It was so hot. And yeah, I remember just kind of like navigating through the stadium, and then I remember I found this little hallway when the game was over, and I went to try to take a selfie, and one of the people working there was like, "Oh, I'll take a picture of you." And I'm wearing like a brown shirt, and I'm sitting there like overlooking the stadium, with a smirk on my face. It was this beautiful stadium. I remember watching the game. I think they played the Phillies that game. I think it was like an interleague play game. It's on my ticket stub because that's what we used to have back in the day, ticket stubs. I still have them for pretty much all the games I've been to, but. Um, yeah, it's so, and I remember leaving the stadium and driving back to my hotel, which was in downtown Dallas this time. And I remember getting up to my room. It was at either a Sheraton or a Marriott downtown. It's really, really nice. And another city that's a ghost town on the weekends, especially a holiday weekend. There was like nothing going on there. Um, but there was a cheerleading competition or a dance competition. They were staying in my hotel because I remember going down to the lobby on my way out to go out for the night. Um, they were just like they were just cheerleaders and dances everywhere, and they were just practicing in the lobby, practicing in the halls, and buses were coming up and all this stuff. It was chaotic. It was like, oh God, I picked like the worst hotel. Plus, there was nothing to do downtown Dallas, anyways. So I'm trying to remember how I got the info to go to where I went. Let's see. I'm trying to remember. So I was in Dallas, and I think I went to the bar in the hotel. Which would make sense. Okay, so I can't remember this, but this is what had to happen. I remember going to the lobby, and I remember going to the revolving doors to get to my cab, but I had to be sitting at the bar because someone said Green Tree Avenue is where you want to go for stuff tonight. Green Tree Avenue, Green Tree Avenue. Now I would have had no idea Green Tree Avenue unless someone told me. So someone told me, and it had to be at the hotel bar. Or when I was checking into the hotel. Maybe it was when I was checking into the hotel because I would have been too cheap to go to the hotel bar. I might have been flirting with the girl at the front desk or something and asking her where to go. And she told me. That makes more sense. I think I'm calling the cab because I don't have any recognition of sitting at a hotel bar in Dallas. So pretty sure that didn't happen. But yes, it was. I remember going to the lobby and I remember getting the cab and going. So there must have been someone checking me in that told me that. So I just said, take me to Green Tree Avenue. And that's where I went. And it was hot. It was a nice hot summer night, and I think we'll leave it there. We'll leave it at Green Tree Avenue because this will be my night in Dallas, and then leading into the decision I made that really changed everything for the entire trip. You know, maybe for the forever. Who knows? But it definitely changed it for the trip. So we'll talk about that next week on this episode of The Travel Guy. I am Artie84. Leave your comments below, or you can send me an email. Send me an email at arty@arty84.com. That's ARTY at ARTY84.com. Tell me what you think. Share your stories about Houston, about the stadium, and we'll continue your story next week on The Travel Guy. See you guys later. Bye.